Did you know that in the 1980s in Birmingham in England, there was a poltergeist case that affected 5 families and baffled everybody and has still never been solved? This all started in 1981 in the Ward End area of Birmingham on a road that was called Thornton Road. And like most poltergeist cases, this all started out of the blue. Families along the road began to hear the sounds of rocks being thrown at their house. So they would hear this incessant rattling as stones were pelted against their roofs, their doors, their windows, their walls. And every time they tried to find who the perpetrator was, they could never find anybody that was responsible. In all, 5 families fell victim to this, and it just got weirder and weirder. So what started as pebbles and little stones being thrown against the house soon became pebbles, stones and small rocks being hurled at the house and causing actual damage. The families observed that the stones sometimes materialised out of thin air and were thrown at the houses, or they would fall from the sky like rain. And this was happening every night, and sometimes it would literally go on continuously for hours. And the families began to notice something else that was kind of strange. When the stones were being thrown at the windows, they seemed to be aimed at windows where there was a person in the room. And if that person moved to a different room, the stones would follow. After 7 nights of this, the families got law enforcement involved. And understandably, law enforcement believed that this was the work of vandals. So they set up cameras, infrared cameras, motion detectors. They had officers that were stationed in the gardens of these houses, and still they couldn't catch anybody. But what they did find was interesting. There were no fingerprints on the stones, and the stones were all really smooth, like they had been polished. The chief inspector at the time, a man named Len Turley, believed that they put 1,000 man-hours into this case, and essentially they got nowhere. It got to the point where the families put up corrugated iron and like chicken wire around their houses to protect them, because literally there were nights where every single window in the houses were broken. Eventually, the police sort of loosely suggested that it was clearly some sort of catapult that was causing this, but there wasn't really any hard evidence to suggest that this was the case. Also, that didn't explain the accuracy with which these stones were being thrown. And you would imagine that if somebody had set up a catapult that was able to shower 5 houses with stones for hours and hours at a time, somebody would notice. This went on for 3 years and it just sort of petered out. But nobody has ever been able to solve it. There was never a satisfactory answer as to what had happened, who or what was attacking these houses nightly, or why. If you like stories of this ilk, then listen to my podcast, Real Life Ghost Stories. It is just full to the brim of paranormal mysteries.